What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel for what may be the final time. And today we are reviewing the Thrawn Ascendency Trilogy. But, but before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell in case I ever make another YouTube video again. Background of the books, these are in the canon timeline. And the first one released in late 2020, I think like September, and the third one released in late 2021, like around November-ish. And these are the most recent Thrawn novels released as of the making of this video. And the background in universe is these books depict Thrawn's final year as part of the Chiss Ascendency, which is like, it's a section of space outside of the main Star Wars galaxy. I should have put a map in the video, but I'm in too deep at this point. So, yeah, it's like a subsection of the Star Wars galaxy, and it takes place 19 BBY around to 18 BBY, which is like just after Revenge of the Sith. And the Grisk return and push the Ascendancy to the brink of destruction. Pictured on the left is a Grisk alien. They're just kind of like smart conquerors. And these books explain Thrawn's cause and purpose for going into exile. So yeah. The first book is Chaos Rising, and it details the Ascendancy's battle with the Nicardoon Destiny, which is an alien conqueror faction. And I really enjoyed the format of this book, and because it has like regular chapters of just like telling the story, but then there are like shorter chapters that are flashbacks, and they have really cool black borders around them. And when you hold the book sideways, you can really see where those memories are, what the short chapters are called. You can really tell how many of them are in one of the books. And I love the way Thrawn is depicted as kind of like, he's definitely autistic, 100%. And he's a pretty good representation of that because he's really good with what he excels in. But also, the one thing I don't like is he can pretty much see the future in battle. He is that autistically smart where he can predict everyone's moves up to a certain point, but he is just like blinded when it comes to human interaction and politics. And yeah, I think that's why I relate with the character so much and why he's my favorite Star Wars character, because I'm 99% sure I have some similar qualities to him. And I just think, as a person as smart as he is, though, would not have those political shortcomings. He would be able to predict that, as he does with other battles and the way people react. And I think that's just a way that Zahn writes it, to give him some weakness anyway to beat him. I also love the way all three of the books are kind of framed with their conflicts, because this one is like with open warfare, but with the other ones we'll see like the logical evolution of it. And yeah, pretty solid book. I would highly recommend it if you are looking into reading any Star Wars novel. The second book, Greater Good. This one is much more of a political slow burn than the first book, and I think that's the evolution I was talking about with Chaos Rising, is that the first one is like just battlefield combat, but this one is like interpersonal politics, and that's the main conflict of this book. And the main threat that is spurring on that conflict is the Agbui, which are led by a specific Grisk named Jixtus, who is manipulating the Chiss families into starting a civil war by themselves, because he essentially lies and say that there's this very rich mine on a planet, but that's a lie, and so multiple families go to that planet, and they end up almost starting a civil war over it. But Thrawn, as the genius that he is, he diffuses that and then crashes a ship into the mine. And it's really the only way that outcome could have happened where the Ascendency doesn't implode. And this book starts off really slow. Like, I really struggled to get through the first couple chapters because they really don't seem to be related in any way. But by the end, you are just blown away with how intricately weaved every detail in this book is. I think Zahn is really firing on all cylinders with this trilogy. I think it is. It's his best trilogy, hot take. And I think it's like the pinnacle of his writing in Star Wars. And it also introduces a Force-sensitive woman who can see decently far into the future called the Mages. It's really hard to pronounce all these space names, but there's an interesting point in this book where the Mages kind of siphons power from the Skywalker, which is the Chiss Force sensitive who pilots all the freighters. But that is really expanded upon in the third book, that is Thrawn Ascendency, Lesser Evil, and it's by far the best one of the trilogy, the longest one of the trilogy. It combines the political warfare of the second book with the open warfare of the first book, and that kind of meshes to be this perfect balance between like political setup and payoff, with also the awesomeness that is space combat. And I really enjoyed the weird mystery of how the Magus starts like really eating away at the Skywalker in this book, whose name is Cherie, and that allows her to see like hours or days into the future. And by the end of this book, the characters solve it in a very in-character way, with like I'm not going to go into that. There's too many characters with too many weird names, but the characters really, they're built up through all three books, and this third book really pays off with how the characters end up and how they react to the end situation. This book specifically out of the trilogy ties really heavily into Outbound Flight because it really connects Thrawn and Thras together as like brothers. And I think it's really beautiful how this book, tying into Zahn's old Legends novels, some of his newer canon novels, it really feels like this book is the conclusion of him being a Star Wars writer, because it is so beautifully crafted to include just minor details from everything he's touched, minor character details, minor plot details. You can really see the growth of Thrawn and Zahn's style throughout these books. And this book ties heavily into Outbound Flight. In, I think, Chaos Rising, Thrawn goes to lesser space, which is the actual Star Wars galaxy, and the whole book of Thrawn Alliances, well, the past section of it takes place within this novel. And then the ending of Lesser Evil is the start of the canon Thrawn novel from 2017, and it was just it was beautiful watching all of this tie together. What is it, like 30 years of writing, 15 books that I've sunk over half a year into. It really paid off in the final few chapters of this book, and it got to a point where it actually brought me to tears with how well crafted and how much Timothy Zahn got me to care about a villain in his other books. And I think that's why Thrawn will always be my favorite Star Wars character. He can be misconstrued or not, and whatever he's doing is for the greater good of the Ascendency. And yeah, it's just beautiful to watch play out. My personal ranking of these books, I would put Thrawn Ascendency in third place. The slow start is definitely a detractor, but when it picks up, it really gets going. So it's like a 9 out of 10. It's really good. I highly recommend it. This whole trilogy. But this trilogy definitely gets more worth if you've read the other Timothy Zahn books first. Second out of this trilogy is Chaos Rising. It's really good, really solid. Gets you hooked from the start, and really delves into like the nitty-gritty of how the Ascendancy works, so that you can understand it for the rest of the trilogy and not need like to be on Wikipedia every couple of seconds. But obviously, the first place, the best of the trilogy, Lesser Evil, 10 out of 10 book, no notes. It is on par with any piece of Star Wars you could pull up. They really heighten and expand this universe and make it feel lived in and interesting. And yeah, the only gripe I can have with these books is that it's almost too far removed from the greater Star Wars galaxy, where it's just a sci-fi novel. But then there's bits of action and bits of lore that really pull you back in and make you remember this is Star Wars, and this is, what I love. And yeah. So now that I've read all 15 Timothy Zahn novels over the course of half a year, let's rank all 15 of them. In dead last, if you've seen my last video, choices of one. Yeah, it's good. That's about all you can say. It doesn't really add anything. It doesn't detract anything. It's just there if you enjoy reading. And I've learned I have. So yeah. 14th place, we have Thrawn Allegiance. Once again, it is pretty much choices of one, but it came first. I like that it focuses heavier on the stormtroopers, because really that's the best part of the book. And yeah, and not a masterpiece, good book. And it doesn't really add much either. Alright, 13th place, Survivor's Quest. Really, really slow burn to start. It really takes too long to pick up, where I almost didn't want to continue reading it. But once it starts getting going, it really gets foot on the gas and starts getting to it. And it also adds more mystery on the legend side of thing to Outbound Flight, because it's mentioned in the Thrawn trilogy, but it's never like expanded upon, and then this kind of gives bigger hints to it. But then later on, Outbound Flight gets its own book, which we will get to shortly. Next up, 12th, we have Thrawn Alliances. Didn't like how unfocused this book seemed, because there's the Empire section and there's the Galactic Republic section, and it really just seems it's like two half stories thrown together. But the Empire story is way more interesting, and the Galactic Republic section is like just a good episode of the Clone Wars. So if you stitch those together, you still get a pretty good book. In 11th place, we have Thrawn Treason. Um, yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. He, I mean, it ties into his links with the Ascendency and the Grisk, just like Allegiance, and it has him solving this big web mystery. It's just that Timothy Zahn definitely has better books. Speaking of his better books, we have the third book of the Thrawn trilogy, the OG Thrawn trilogy, which is The Last Command. I'd say it's definitely the weakest of the bunch, but that doesn't mean it's not good by any means. It is spectacular. It really focuses in on Luke and Mara Jade, and like half of the book is like a massive third act on Wayland that is super interesting, super action packed, and it's great. The OG Thrawn trilogy is some of the best Star Wars you can read or even consume. It's a real man sequel trilogy, if you will. Not that the canon sequels are bad. Hold up, I've lost count. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. Ninth place. Outbound Flight. This one has definitely climbed the rankings after the Ascendency trilogy because it really adds that much more weight to some of the less interesting aspects of this. Yeah, it really solves a decades-long mystery in the Legends continuity about what Outbound Flight was, and it starts off slow, like too many of Zahn's books do, but by the end of it, it ties together really nicely, and you are left amazed by, and honestly heartbroken by the story that Zahn is able to tell. Eighth place, I currently don't have this book in hand. I loaned it to a friend of mine, but Heir to the Empire. I mean, it's the Star Wars novel of all time. It's really good, really lays the groundwork for the expanded universe and Legends, and it really gets you hooked into the Thrawn trilogy and greater readings in the Star Wars universe. Because initially I got the Thrawn trilogy as a gift because I was like, it's a cornerstone of Star Wars. I should give it a go. And I think somewhere between Heir to the Empire and Dark Force Rising, I was like, damn, this is really good. I should read all of Timothy Zahn's books. And now here we are with me having done that. Speaking of Dark Force Rising, seventh place, Dark Force Rising. Honestly, I think it's the most slept on book in the Thrawn trilogy. It takes the part of Heir to the Empire that I didn't like with Leia and Chewbacca, and it turns that around and makes it into the best part of this book. Jaw on the floor, great cliffhanger at the end with Thrawn getting a lot of the Dark Force. Yeah. And it really leaves you wanting to dive immediately into The Last Command. And yeah, great book, great trilogy as a whole. If you haven't read that, definitely give it a go. It's spectacular. Sixth place, we have Thrawn Ascendency, great or good. As I said, slow start, political masterpiece by Timothy Zahn. It really weaves together these really unrelated webs, and somehow in the end they all connect, and it ties together really well. It gets you hooked so early, so interesting, especially for being not very Star Warsy, just kind of like sci-fi as a whole. But it's a delicious read. I highly recommend the OG Thrawn trilogy the Thrawn Ascendency trilogy and the canon Thrawn trilogy. They are just some of the best fiction you can read. Yeah. And in 5th place, Chaos Rising. I read this about less than a month ago, and it really it made me want to blow through the Ascendancy trilogy. It gets you in immediately, ties you into all the mysteries. It sets up everything that happens in the Ascendancy trilogy. Like, there are no wasted words in these books, except for some, which I will get to when we get to Lesser Evil. But yeah, it sets up the rest of the trilogy so well that it's like, it is almost as much of one book as The Hand of Thrawn was, because that one was originally meant to be one book and it got split because it was too long. But these are just so well intertwined and connected among themselves that if you don't keep reading, you will be missing a massive piece of it. And speaking of The Hand of Thrawn, I'm counting them as one. I'll count them as two, even though they're supposedly one book. 4th place, the first book, because it is all set up and not a lot of payoff. But then 3rd place is Visions of the Future, because it just pays off so well with Spectre of the Past that it's just so beautifully written, where Spectre of the Past is like a softball pitch right up, and then Visions of the Future knocks it out of the park, delivering on everything that it sets up. Yeah, I think it's better than the original Thrawn trilogy, which is kind of a hot take. But the way they use the characters, the way they interact with each other, and the way they are developed from away from the movies kind of enriches this for me more than the Thrawn trilogy did. And in 2nd place, my second favorite Zahn novel that I've read is Lesser Evil. I finished this book today, like a couple hours ago, and it was so good that I don't know what to do with myself now that I'm done with it. I started reading it at like the start of the week. I blew through it in a couple of days. Sorry, I was interrupted by my brother coming down the stairs. But I finished this book today. It was spectacular. There's a really nice misdirect, because at the end of Greater Good, it mentions like a super weapon, and then this whole book is kind of like leaning into that, setting it up, and then in the final conflict, Thrawn goes to the storehouse where the super weapon is stored, but he doesn't use it. And I think that's like a beautiful play on his character, because he doesn't go for massive power. He goes for what is smartest. And I think that's I think that's like the epitome of everything Zahn wrote. It is about it's not about massively overpowering. It's about using your intellect and getting the results that way. And so my favorite book that I've read over the past half year, the original, or the canon Thrawn novel, I don't really have words for it. It's the perfect backstory of him as an Imperial. Really digs into his character and heightens the experience of every other piece that he's in. Yeah, about the only thing that I can say is that Thrawn as an Imperial seems like he's not as devoted to the Chiss ascendancy, and that is something that I am very worried about when it comes to his future depiction is that they're going to simplify the character. They're going to make him just a smart bad guy. They're not going to make him the conflicted warrior that he is in the Thrawn novel, where he's struggling with his ties to the Ascendency and his ties to the Empire. And that's really what makes me cautious of Ahsoka Season 2. Because you could see it in Ahsoka Season 1. He was not the same person as he is from these books. And yeah, it makes me cautious about anything he's in. I think with Lesser Evil, it may be time to, with reading Lesser Evil, it may be time to retire the character, give him one last go, maybe in a novel, maybe in Ahsoka Season 2, and just give his story the send-off it deserves. Okay, now time for the actual section of this video. It is the state of my galaxy. I just blew through 15 books in 7 months, and these were like my favorite character, the one I'm tied to. I will definitely be reading more. I don't know when, and I don't know what. I don't know if I will be making YouTube videos and posting them anymore, because I don't know if I'll have the passion to do that. But I will definitely be reading more. Got my eyes on the Darth Bane trilogy, the Darth Plagueis novels, the X-Wing books, the New Jedi Order, some one-off canon novels. I just need some time to think and really decide on what would be the next best step to read. And if I do post another YouTube video, make sure you ring the bell so you know when it happens. And yeah, I think that's about it for me. I will maybe see you guys again. Thank you so much for watching.